The African National Congress, ANC, is shaken by another explosive leak that has set shockwaves running through South Africa's political environment. This one does not emerge from the oppositional benches or the ubiquitous spotlight of the media. It emerges from within the ruling party itself, an insider's betrayal that promises to reveal just how tenuous the house of cards of the ANC has turned out to be. Led Mantashe, a veteran ANC heavyweight and one of the party's most powerful players in its lengthy and stormy history, has torched the stage with a theatrical tirade that has pulled Secretary General Mbalula directly into the center of a corruption controversy the ANC had fought hard to conceal. For years, Mbalula has been considered untouchable, a master of the political game whose ability to maneuver crisis kept him firmly in power. But in one shocking outburst, Mantashe has shattered that illusion. As per sources, the face-off occurred behind closed doors at what was meant to be a normal leadership meeting. However, it escalated into an inferno of accusations, rage, and betrayal. With intense allegations of his own complicity in questionable business practices facing him, Mantashe was said to have pounded his fists on the table, his voice resonating in the room as he exclaimed, "I won't go down alone." The room, according to witnesses, went quiet. A heavy tension permeated the air as the gravity of his words became clear. And then, without remorse, Mantashe started lifting the veil on Mbula's supposed secret involvement in the ANC's vast corruption chain. Attendees termed the moment one of dumbfounded shock. Even the most ardent comrades were seated in frozen silence as Mantashe presented his charges. He accused Mbalula of being at the center of backdoor negotiations, tender tampering, and questionable money-making ventures that have bedeviled the ruling party for years. Mantashe said financial streams were consciously structured to benefit ANC insiders while depriving critical public projects of the funding they so urgently required. With visible rage, Mantashe is reported to have bellowed that while he was being targeted for scrutiny, Mbalula and others had dirty hands too and ought not to be permitted to get away scot-free. His tirade fell like a thunderclap, tearing aside the veil of solidarity the ANC has gone so painstakingly to preserve. The timing of this explosion could not have been worse for the ANC. Already reeling from decades of corruption, gaffes, promises made but not kept and an eroding reputation among ordinary citizens, the party can now also contend with a new internal crisis, one that is self-inflicted. With Mantashe firing on Mbalula, the illusion of unity is shattered and the message to South Africans is stark and clear. The ANC is no longer only fighting off outside critics. It is eating itself alive. Within moments of the allegations being made, there had begun to circulate in ANC ranks whispers of factional conflict. Some in the party quietly mobilized around Mantashe, privately admitting what many have long suspected, that Mbalula had dirty hands. Others had set to work in haste to defend the Secretary General, determined to limit the damage and maintain what little legitimacy remains for the party. What was supposed to be a mundane conference has now turned into a full-blown scandal, promising to divide the party right down the middle. For Mbalula, this is a worse nightmare. Famous for his attention-seeking nature, his talkative public outbursts, and his firm hold on the internal machinery of the ANC, Mbalula has always lived for the limelight. But this time, the limelight is far from welcome. He finds himself squarely in the crosshairs, accused not only by the opposition or the public, but by one of his own. Opposition politicians didn't waste any time in pouncing on the opportunity. The Democratic Alliance instantly called for Mbalula to be brought before Parliament to explain himself regarding his supposed involvement in corruption. The economic freedom fighters were more aggressive, insisting on his immediate suspension until there is a full investigation done. For the opposition, Mantashe's statement is nothing short of political gold. The public's reaction has been just as intense. Within hours, social media erupted with hashtags like #BolaMustFall and #ANCCorruption. With thousands of South Africans demanding answers, critics lambasted the ANC for continuing to protect leaders accused of wrongdoing while ordinary citizens suffer under unemployment, rolling blackouts, collapsing infrastructure, and skyrocketing crime. Just when we believe the ANC has hit rock bottom, they dig deeper, a displeased user posted on X, formerly Twitter. Another user remarked, Mbalula has consistently ridiculed allegations of corruption, yet this time they are leveled by those within. How much proof do we need before something is done? Political commentators were quick to jump in on the escalating crisis. Others said that Mantashe's action was not a cold rage but a purposeful blow. Dr. Saifa Malangu, an expert on governance, opined that Mantashe realizes his career is on the precipice. By pointing fingers at Mbalula, he's making sure that if he falls he doesn't fall alone. This isn't so much about principle and more about survival. Others interpreted it differently. Political analyst Professor Loroto Dlini opined that the conflict may be a turning point in ANC politics. For decades, ANC leaders have protected themselves behind party loyalty when confronted with accusations. What we are now witnessing is that the protection walls are beginning to crumble. The senior members are turning against one another. That's unprecedented. The ripple effects are already being experienced outside Latuli House. Parliament is preparing itself for hot debates as opposition parties sharpen their knives to bring Mantashe's allegations into play against the ANC. Civil society is gearing up with new campaigns calling for accountability, and ordinary South Africans are observing with a combination of outrage and dark fascination as the ruling party's internal conflicts spill out into the public domain. The ANC, once hailed as the freedom movement that liberated South Africa, today is confronted with another crisis of credibility, one that may decide its destiny. The party has already lost major elections at the polls in recent years, and analysts say that if leadership fails to plug this firestorm, it may cost them exceedingly high in future polls. For Mantashe, the sword of Damocles has been hung. His utterance, "I won't go down alone," rings not only as a threat to himself, but as a portent to all of the ANC leadership. If he goes, others will go with him. His explosive revelations have put FOC Mbalula firmly in the firing line, bursting the carefully preserved aura of ANC harmony and laying bare the party's fundamental fault lines. The next question is whether the ANC can keep the damage in, or if Mantashe's outburst will create a domino effect that pulls more leaders onto the spotlight. South Africans are left wondering how deep the rot is and how many more secrets are kept behind the closed doors of the ruling party. One thing though is clear. The days of quiet are behind us. The ANC's corruption scandals are no longer spoken of in dark corridors or hidden behind loyalty. They are bursting into the light, with leaders now fighting one another in public view.